Joining me today around the table, John Podesta. He is former chief of staff to President Bill Clinton and chair of the Center for American Progress. Arthur Davis, a former Democratic congressman from Alabama, but he switched to the Republican Party over policy differences on entitlements and health care. Ruth Marcus is a columnist for the Washington Post, and Ben Ferguson is a CNN commentator and syndicated radio host. Thank you all so much for joining me. Let's start with the poll numbers and whether or not they affect the president's hand as we watch both this budget fight and the possible government shutdown and the debt ceiling fight.
Well,
go ahead.
We're all too polite. I would say I actually really wonder whether they do, because he doesn't have to worry about running for re-election. Who is it who is going in the Republican Party who is going to feel compelled to support him or less compelled to oppose him because his poll numbers are low? We're so divided and so factionalized that, you want to have stronger poll numbers, but his party is essentially with him on keeping Obamacare, keeping the government running, avoiding the debt ceiling, and the other party is in a different position.
I think Obama just doesn't care, and it's pretty obvious. I mean, he's playing golf yesterday as a sign, I think, really, I'm not going to negotiate with you. I'll negotiate with Tehran. I'll negotiate with Assad and chemical weapons, with terrorists, but I will not negotiate with Republicans. And I think that message is probably going to hurt those running for re-election that are Democrats, because how can you say that you're willing to work with those people, but you refuse to acknowledge the existence of the House of Representatives, which, by the way, you're not in the majority there. You're in the minority, and that's a problem.
But look, he's come into this fight with the GOP wanting to foment a crisis, and that's what he's got. And I think that's the story that people are hearing around America. And they had an opportunity after the Senate sent the continuing resolution back to have a clean continuing resolution to keep the government functioning. They chose again, I think for the 43rd time, to vote to defund or to push off Obamacare. And I think that the public gets that it's the Republicans that are forcing this crisis.
Candy, two quick points. There's no question that Obama has an incredibly weak hand. If you had said 6 months ago his approval rating would be in the low to mid 40s, no one would have bought that. But as a Republican, I do worry about the way this debate is playing out. I think Republicans win the substance on Obamacare, and have been winning the substance for 3 years. I'm not convinced Republicans win an argument over the mechanics. I'm not convinced Republicans win an argument over brinksmanship. See, I would much rather see Republicans right now making a case about how we as a party can do this better than the Democrats.
Well,
I see too many Republicans not making that case, but arguing that, frankly, well, let's just leave health care alone. Let's not do anything about health care. I want to see us make a case that we can do it better.
Republicans made that case, and they took back the House by making the case that Obamacare was not a good thing. The American people believe that Obamacare is not a good thing. Doctors are not out there championing this. Even members of Congress are saying, I don't even know if I want to be a part of this. And so they did make the case. The problem is the president is not willing to negotiate. And unfortunately, we live in a country for him right now where your job is to negotiate with Congress, and saying I refuse to negotiate, I think the American people are going to look at that and go, that's not real leadership right now.
I'm sorry, you say Republicans made that case, but Republicans made that case in 2012, and guess who got reelected president? And the poll numbers that I think may be relevant.
Before people read the bill.
But let me finish here. The poll numbers, no, that wasn't before people read the bill. I think the poll numbers that may be relevant is, however, Obamacare polls, people do not want to see a shutdown over defunding or delaying, as you say, Obamacare. And that's where I think you're totally right. The Republican Party is in a pickle.
This is the challenge right now for Republicans. We win an argument over whether or not these exchanges are too complicated. We win an argument over whether the mandates are a good thing. We win an argument over all the unpredictability and whether people's premiums are going up. We win all of that. We do not win an argument over brinksmanship, and frankly, we hadn't won one as a party in the last 15 or 16 years. But I want to see Republicans come to the table and say, we can fix this, and we can run it more efficiently, and we can run it better.
It's clear the Republican leadership did not want this brinksmanship to take place. Ted Cruz is now running the House of Representatives. And I think that they're going to pay a price for this because it's very clear that they're forcing the government into a shutdown.
I'm going to pick up on this point, John. When we come back, we will be talking about Republican infighting over defunding Obamacare. It's taken a nasty turn. The latest from Saturday Night Live, opening its season. We're back with John Podesta, Arthur Davis, Ruth Marcus, and Ben Ferguson. The role of Ted Cruz has set up some real, now open party feuding, certainly with Senate members, and also with some members of the House. Where is this headed?
This is really incredible, because if you go back to 95 and 96, and the last government shutdown, which knocked a half a point off of GDP in the United States, at least Gingrich was in charge of his caucus. Now it appears that Heritage Action and Ted Cruz and the Koch brothers are running the Republican House caucus, and it is amazing. The weakness, I think, that the leadership has shown in not staring these guys down.
It's amazing to me how terrified you are of a guy that ran for the Senate on saying he was going to do actually what he said he was going to do. And here's the thing people don't understand about Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz did not come to Washington, D.C. to make friends with John McCain and Lindsey Graham or with John Boehner. He went there with the people and he said, this is how I'm going to get elected. This is what I'm going to do. But let me say this real quick. This is important. John McCain and Ted Cruz are two totally different people. And John McCain says, I don't like you because you're getting too much press. I don't like you because you're being too effective. That's what it boils down to.
Let me step beyond the personalities, because personalities will come and go. What's missing in the Republican Party right now is someone who's a credible national figure, who's not just a columnist or a pundit like some of us, who can actually step forward and provide a different vision of conservatism than the one that Ted Cruz believes in. There is room in the Republican Party for a vision of conservatism that says, yeah, we don't want to fix health care in this big, bloated, bureaucratic way if the Democrats want to do it. But we do think that we can figure out ways to deal with the problem being insured. We think we can deal with the problem of businesses and cost containment, but we can do it in a better, more constructive way. And on issue after issue, on food stamps, there is a vision of the Republican Party that says we're not going to throw the program out and gut it, but we can reform it and make it better. That reform vision is missing on the national stage, and that ought to be the counter to Cruz. Yeah, if it's Obama against Cruz, of course it's easy for Republicans to line up.
I think there's a lot missing on the national stage for Republicans, and I'm not afraid of Ted Cruz. I don't find Ted Cruz scary. Let me finish here. I don't find Ted Cruz scary. What I find scary is the notion that he is in charge of the House of Representatives. Of course, if he became Speaker, but wait, of course, if he became Speaker, he might find that it's not a very pleasant job. But what's scary isn't the presence of Cruz. What's scary is the absence of Boehner, the absence of strong Republican leadership who can call the bluff of this fairly small faction of House Republicans and say it's time for us to start.
I was going to say, and yet they're all voting unanimously.
Yeah, it's not small.
Let me interrupt you because I've got to get a question, take advantage here of John's relationship with the Clintons. Bill Clinton, former president, was on ABC this morning talking about learning the lessons of the last election for Hillary Clinton in the will she run again. He said, well, there's lots of lessons to be learned. And then he said, the next one will be better. It'll be different. Whether she's in it or not, they're all different. And the main thing you can't do, the great trick in any human endeavor, including politics, is you must learn the lessons of your mistakes and your failures without becoming a general who fights the last war. Is he the only one that is not convinced she's running? It seems to me he pretty much declared for her.
Well, look, I think, I saw her this week. I was up at the Clinton Global Initiative, and I think she's going to put off a decision about whether to run. I hope she does. It sounds like the president hopes she does as well, and I think she'll be a formidable candidate. The other thing the president said, which I think is very much is front and center right now, is you have to have a vision for the country, and I think she'll provide that if she does run. But what we're lacking right now, as Artur said, is a vision from the Republicans about where they want to take the country. Even Mitt Romney came out against what's happening in Washington right now.
Didn't work for him. I'm going to have you all hang on here because we're now going to go global. Obama on the world stage. Did his overture toward Iran help him or hurt him?
Resolving this issue obviously could also serve as a major step forward in a new relationship between the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran, one based on mutual interest and mutual respect. It would also help facilitate a better relationship between Iran and the international community, as well as others in the region.
That's President Obama Friday after his phone call with the new Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, where they talked about the impasse over Iran's nuclear program and raised the possibility that an improved relationship with the Iranians could expand throughout the Middle East. We are back. John Podesta, Archer Davis, Ruth Marcus, and Ben Ferguson. So we have a meeting tomorrow between the President and the Prime Minister of Israel. I want to start with you, John, simply because you met with President Rouhani in a small group last week. Give us your sense of this guy, because there's two opinions. Oh, he's new and he's moderate. This might really be a breakthrough, and don't trust this guy.
Well, look, he ran and he won in the first round with the pledge to fix the economy. In order to do that, he's got to get rid of the sanctions. So I think he came with seriousness, but this is going to be a very tough negotiation. I think they're going to demand that the world recognize their right to enrich. I think the world is going to demand that they roll back their nuclear program. So I think it's going to be very tough. But the one good sign, I think, is that the Supreme Leader, Mr. Khamenei, has agreed to let the foreign minister take the lead in these negotiations. He met with Secretary Kerry at the UN this week. He is a pragmatist, but this is going to be very tough to close the gap between the two sides.
Candy, one quick point. This is the price of Obama's mishandling of Syria. The Iranian government could credibly conclude that Barack Obama could not marshal the country or the Congress in a use of force resolution against Iran unless Iran were to do something openly provocative. Post-Syria, the dynamics have been greatly complicated. The U.S.'s bargaining hand has been greatly weakened.
I would note, though, that we're now on the brink of rolling back one of the largest chemical weapons programs in the world.
Possibly.
Yes, but did the Iranians look at Assad and say he was better off with chemical weapons or better off without chemical weapons? I think they look at his chemical weapons and they say, gee, we're going to keep developing our nuclear weapons because chemical weapons, in a sense, are what is keeping Assad, helping keep Assad in power.
I think that there is...
But Iran also has a bad history with chemical weapons. It has always been...
No, what I'm saying, they look at their nuclear program and they say, we need to keep pushing this. Yes, it's all about the economy, stupid, in Iran as well as here. Nonetheless, the sanctions, the question is whether the sanctions are hitting hard enough to make it worthwhile for them to give up the nuclear program. It's not clear that that's happened yet.
You're not dealing with sane people. I mean, that's one of the issues here. And I think you look at Iran and you look at this new leader, it's kind of like Reagan when he talked to Gorbachev. I don't think there's a problem with having a basic phone call, and it might open up a direct dialogue. That's a good thing. But I think Iran knows that if they can keep Barack Obama talking and they can keep others in our government talking, that gives them more time to get nuclear weapons, because once you get them, you don't have to talk to anybody ever again, in theory, and that's their overall goal. And the other issue is Barack Obama, after Syria, the world does not fear him under the leadership of what he's going to do, because he said, here's my red line, and it didn't happen. And then we punt to Russia, the biggest ally for Syria, and now they're in charge. That makes us look incredibly weak.
Co-panelists think it's really a bad move to actually destroy the chemical weapons in Syria. It sounds like.
Can I ask you all to add?
Destroy the chemical weapons in Syria. It's not a great move to erode the credibility of the United States, and that's my concern here.
How we got there, the process of not assembling a congressional resolution and Obama's inability to sell it. Obama had 15 votes in the House for a forced resolution.
In the last minute and a half we've got, I want you all to figure Israel into this mix. It, of course, has always said, before they acquire a nuclear weapon, we will destroy them. They obviously wanted the U.S. as a partner, if not in the lead. What does a kind of blossoming, maybe, relationship with Iran do to the U.S.-Israeli relationship, and how Israel views Iran?
Well, look, I don't know that this is a blossoming relationship. There is talk and there's diplomacy, and that's a good thing. And I think that Israelis are skeptical. They're going to watch it very closely, and I think the United States is skeptical, quite frankly, about whether they can get to the end game. But ultimately, they must together stop Iran from developing a nuclear weapon.
Israel is way more cynical about whether the Iranians are serious here, and they're way more skeptical about whether President Obama can really be trusted to watch out for their security. So I think unfolding in Syria, it just makes Israel that much more likely to be willing, if it thinks it's necessary for its own survival, to act on its own.
Israel
think
will act in
Israel-
its own interests, and they will not follow the lead of the United States on this question.
Israel is not going to be sitting there waiting on Obama. They're going to now have to do what they
Or
want to
the
do to
US
protect,
Congress,
yeah,
even.
to protect themselves.
I got to leave it there. Thank you all so much for coming. Ben Ferguson, Ruth Marcus, Arthur Davis, John Podesta. Appreciate it. Thank you all for